All right. Good morning, everyone. Hi, Karen.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm awesome. I'm so like it's Friday. This is one of the things I love to do on a Friday. I usually hop onto my own Instagram and do like a little live chat about something that's going on this week. And but today I'm here with you, which is a super special treat.
So excited to have you here. And we do have something that's going on to talk about for sure today. I am like crack of 9 a.m. for me today. I just got in at like 11 o'clock last night from being at a mentorship all week in New Jersey, just like doing so much learning with these tongue-tie babies. I've been kind of specializing in working with infant feeding, especially related to tongue and lip ties. So I'm super excited to kind of digest everything I've learned this week and like take it back and be able to help some more babies, which is kind of also what we're here to talk about today.
Yeah, totally.
So I think we should start with just kind of our this is not medical advice specific to your child disclaimer. I think you have something you generally like to say for that.
Sure. So I have a friend who's a registered dietitian, and she likes to remind people when she's on social media that although she's a registered dietitian, she is not your registered dietitian. And the distinction there really is I'm happy to share educational information, and I'm happy to offer strategies and some steps to take. But it's really important that you know that I cannot give specific advice to your kiddo. So if your kiddo has a special medical issue and you're asking me for recommendations before I see your kiddo, I can't do that. That's just unethical and dangerous. So we're here to help for sure today, but I can't drill down on your kiddo alone.
Yeah. So definitely we always recommend like working with your child's pediatrician to incorporate these strategies. Working with your child's nutritionist if you have one. If you don't have one, finding one if you're looking at making some of these changes that really do require that guidance. I will provide links to Karen's information if you want to get in touch with her about follow-up questions or getting on board with services for your child through her practice. We didn't talk about our practices. This is Karen Mosjoy.
You go first. You tell us about your practice.
So you guys know me. I'm Allie from Adaptive Pediatric Therapy. We provide in-home occupational therapy on the New Hampshire Seacoast. And coming in June, we are very excited to announce that we will also be launching a hybrid model with our clinic in Stratham. So we're super excited to be able to service more families. There will be a big kids space for our older kids, and there will be a lot of specialized space for my infant feeding kiddos so we can help some more families and babies. So we're super excited about that.
I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you for taking that step.
I know it's a big step. We're super excited. It will be a little bit of a work in progress, but big things happening. So
absolutely.
And this is Karen from Coastal Family Nutrition.
Yeah, so I am a former special education teacher who retrained as a dietitian. I don't know how many years ago I've been in private practice, probably like 6 or 7 years. And I have, like Allie, really drilled down and specialized in kids with feeding difficulties. So I call myself, I'm a picky eater specialist. If you have a kiddo who has picky eating in any way, I'm happy to help you de-stress your life around eating. So that's what I do here in my office in Portsmouth. The hybrid that I do is I do both telehealth appointments, and I also see people here in my office.
And de-stressing life around feeding. This formula shortage is really hard and really scary for a lot of families. So let's get down to why people are here today.
Yeah.
So a big question for me, because I always see, parents looking for all of these specific formulas, is like, how important is it to stick with the formula that your baby is taking? If you can't find that specific formula, what options do you have in terms of like brand name versus non-brand name, or even like switching to an entirely different formula product if you can't find your specific one?
Yeah, so if your kiddo is taking formula, that's more of a sort of a typical formula, right? It's not broken down, it's not a sensitive formula, it's not hypoallergenic. I think you're going to have a little more flexibility around what you can find out there. There are so many there are lots of store brand names of particular formulas. So I suggest that people, if you're like been using Enfamil, you can go to Target or Walmart or some of those other bigger box stores that have their own label of that kind of formula. If you have a more specialized formula, particularly if you have a formula that needs to be prescribed, you're going to want to reach out to, I say first step number one is reach out to your pediatrician or your prescribing practitioner, so a gastroenterologist, for example. If you are working with a feeding team, definitely reach out to the dietitian on your team. I often have a stash here in my office of a formula that a family's not using anymore. And I call it rehoming, right? I always try to find a place for that formula to go. We don't want it to go to waste. It's expensive. It's difficult to find. So I created a document for this group, and in that document, there are a few links to some other places that you can go to look for formulas too. I just learned this morning at the gym about a new group for Boston sort of and Southern New Hampshire called Formula Fairies. And so there are 1,800 members of that group, and they're doing something similar to the what you guys are doing here, where people are sharing information about where you can find formula and what people need and what people are looking for and what they have to share too.
Awesome. So with that kind of comes the realm of people offering expired formula. People are wanting to help. I think a lot of times, a lot of what's being shared and offered up is these free samples that always come in the mail when you're having a baby. And people are going into their cabinets and finding this formula because they want to help. And oftentimes it's expired, but they still feel compelled to offer it. So professionally, what are your thoughts on expired formula, and if that is an option?
The interesting thing about use by dates, expiration dates, best by dates, that you'll find those terms on food packages. And so there's no sort of hard and fast rule about what term you have to use on food, except for formula, which is regulated by the FDA. And the reason that there's a very specific language saying use by, it's a use by date or an expiry date, is because we're dealing with babies with little tiny organs and who are super, not developed and really in a delicate stage. And so I professionally and ethically would not ever suggest that using a formula past the use by date is a good idea. I think the older your child is, if you have something that has expired on May 19th and it's May 20th, I think with a little common sense, you might feel like that would be okay. The further out you get from that expiration date, I think the less comfortable you should feel. Did I answer that okay?
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. And just so we can kind of, make those common sense decisions for our own family, what are some risk factors of giving your baby an expired formula? Really
good question. So if it's sealed in a package, right, it's got that little thing you peel off. It's sterile until you open it. It is really hermetically sealed. Once you open it and it's exposed to air, there's possible pathogens that could get in there. if you are not careful about how you scoop, right? If you're putting a used scoop or spoon in there, you're introducing other products. If your kiddo gets, your baby gets sick with a foodborne illness of some sort, that's just bad news. That's really dangerous stuff. I think sometimes expiration dates and use by dates are around the degradation of the product. So you could be losing nutritional value, you could be losing flavor and taste, I guess, depending on the food product. For me, I always worry about little babies getting some sort of foodborne illness.
Yeah, awesome. That's super helpful. Okay, so you are at the grocery store, you're looking at the market, you're looking at the shelves, right? These empty shelves that we keep seeing. And your preferred formula is gone. The, box store brand of your formula is gone. But what I'm seeing is there's often like a couple cans of the toddler formula. What are your thoughts in how that can be used? Obviously, toddlers using it still need it, and that's in shortage too. But if your infant is needing formula, but all you're finding is toddler formula.
That's a great question. So my preference would be, if you can't find anything else, if you cannot find any formula of any kind, and there's a toddler formula, I think you should go ahead and use that. All the while continuing to look for an infant formula. The formulations are a little bit different between a toddler formula and an infant formula. And so the nutrition is going to be a little bit different. The FDA really drills down on infant formulas. They are really tight about that, which is partially why we're in the, fix that we're in. If your kiddo is, I'd say, 10 months old and you're thinking about transitioning off of a formula, transitioning them off the infant formula onto a toddler formula for those last few months or however long that lasts, I think that's a great option. You can do the same thing with milk. If your kiddo is, I'd say, closer to a year, right? If we're talking about 11 months, I think that you can feel comfortable beginning to transition a little bit of cow's milk, like 1 ounce in a 6-ounce bottle, and then sort of making that, I call that straddling the fence, that period of time between like 9 months and, in a year, where you're trying to get your kiddo off of some sort of fluid food and onto solid foods. So you can begin to make those transitions. And I think toddler milk is far preferable to a homemade formula. And I know there are lots of recipes out there.
Toddler milk? Did you mean toddler formula or cow's milk?
Sorry, toddler formula. Yeah,
okay.
Sorry, toddler formula. It's definitely preferable over a formula that you create because your mother-in-law's told you about it or something that you find online.
Okay, we'll go back to that because that's a big question. The other thing I want to follow up in is I heard you say cow's milk. So we will get to goat's milk, but I know that you, because I love working with you with our mutual clients, have a little soapbox about your milks.
Yes.
So talk to me when you're talking about straddling that fence and transitioning them maybe a little bit early over to milk.
Yes.
There's a lot of milk products. There's almond milk, there's soy milk, there's oatmeal milk, there's all of these things.
Yeah.
So what should what's the best option?
Yeah. So I'm going to give everybody the benefit of I don't work for the New England Dairy Council speak. I do not. However, cow's milk brings a lot of nutrition with it. And that's why, well, I'm an old lady, so I grew up drinking milk 3 meals a day. That's why we introduce milk to our kiddos, because it has the fat that kids need for brain development. It has the protein for growing, and it's got carbohydrate. But the composition of it, it's just brings a lot of nutrition to the table. Cow's milk has has components that you're not going to get in something like almond milk, cashew milk, hemp milk. And those sort of dairy alternatives are very popular right now. In my practice, I say, I don't care if you drink cow's milk. I really don't. But whatever you're substituting for that, we need to make sure you get the same nutrition. And so some of the products that are plant-based or are good for kids who have a dairy intolerance or a dairy allergy. And my two top favorite ones are soy milk and Ripple milk, which is a pea-based protein. Those two products are most closely related to, maybe it's what I'm trying to say. Nutritionally similar to cow's milk. When you get down to something like almond milk, it just doesn't have what your kiddo needs. It's just less than a gram of protein, whereas cow's milk, Ripple milk, and soy milk have 8 grams of protein. Your kiddo needs that for growing. Almond milk, sometimes I joke around, is literally calcium water. It just doesn't have anything to add. And so if you are thinking about slightly altering your formula, mixing your formula with a non-formula option to kind of make this transition, almond milk truly would be last on the list for me. All those dairy alternatives can be super trendy, and I see that some of them are a little bit better than others. With kids, there's just too much at stake. If you're a 55-year-old woman and you have almond milk in your oatmeal every morning, then I think that's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
If you're a toddler, baby, and you're still in a huge growth phase, that's not a good option for you.
Yeah. So you kind of like, we've talked about bridging the gap, right, for these older kids and kind of like, easing off of the formula and easing onto the other product a little bit early. What about for younger kiddos who you're not thinking about making that transition yet, but you're running low? Like, can you water down your formula to stretch it out? Can you add in milk to stretch it out? Are there options I have this one can and I got to make it last? Or is that all just kind of bad practice?
Actually, those two examples, watering it down with either water or milk, is not a good idea at all. Just for the same reasons we talked about babies having their little tiny organs. This just could stress and strain their little kidneys. And so when you begin to alter your formula, then you alter the nutrition and the electrolytes. That's kind of the dangerous part. And so I believe it's the sodium that gets most thrown off by that. And that can cause lots of issues. And you really want to avoid that at all costs. If you can't find any formula at all, my advice to you would be head to your urgent care clinic, head to the ER over beginning to mix something up yourself.
That's powerful. And I think that's really important for families to hear.
And of course we're reading, I don't know about you, but I read every day about this concern. And there are babies and toddlers who are being admitted because parents can't find what they need to feed their kids.
Yeah.
And so my heart goes out to everybody who's struggling with this.
Yeah.
A formula that's not exactly the right match is better than making your own formula.
Yeah, let's talk about making your own formula. I've seen all of these recipes and it always comes with the aunt who says, this is how I raised mine.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's the Caro syrup one I've seen. I've seen a
Yeah.
couple different varieties. Have you seen any that you like? Like what are your
No.
thoughts on those?
No.
They're-
No. And I laugh and I'm sorry. Please don't.
yeah,
Please, please, please don't.
they're all bad news.
They're all bad news.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I'm seeing a lot about right now is goat's milk. And I just saw a posting the other day that said, don't bother trying to find any formula for your kid. Give your babe goat's milk. Goat's milk is more nutritious and it's better and blah, blah, blah. And that kind of thing makes me scared when I see that. Goat's milk is kind of sort of the it thing right now. It can bring more nutrition than cow's milk to your kiddo who is age appropriate for dairy products.
What does that mean? Is that
So-
like that 12-year mark that you're?
Yeah, the
kind of-
12-month mark.
Okay.
So if you're
12 months, 12
yeah.
months. Thank you.
Yeah. So if your kiddo is over 12 months and they're having dairy products, if you would like to give them goat's milk instead of cow's milk, that is perfectly fine. The nutrition profile is a little bit different. I think it has something to do with some anemia, some iron and B12 differences. So again, in case I haven't made this point, it is so important not to give your kiddo raw products.
Unpasteurized.
Unpasteurized. So raw goat's milk seems to be sort of the darling right now. People are saying, oh, when you pasteurize, and I've heard this for many, many years, when you pasteurize milk, it kills off some of the nutrition, or rather alters the nutrition. And so unpasteurized is preferable. And I'm going to say there's a massive trade-off. So if you are serving unpasteurized product to your kiddo, you are potentially exposing them to pathogens like a foodborne illness situation again. Bad news for kiddos. If there's a little bit of nutrition lost by pasteurization, like to me, that it's just not there. There is a reason that raw milk products are actually not allowed to be sold in certain states.
Yeah. And, you know, pregnant women, it's not really recommended for those products either for similar reasons.
No, there have been food advancements that have allowed us to live healthier, more fulfilling lives. And pasteurization is one of the great ones.
Yeah, that's really helpful. But so pasteurized versus unpasteurized, I think we're very clear. I think the difference, I don't really see people suggesting cow's milk as a good alternative for these little babies, but I see my baby went home from the NICU on goat's milk. So I see that goat's milk being suggested to these really younger babies. And what I'm hearing from you is probably not a good idea, and definitely not without consulting with your medical team.
Oh, totally. Particularly for that little baby who's been discharged from the NICU. I mean,
Yeah.
there was a reason that baby was in the NICU, and I'm sure that it's not 100% resolved by the time they leave.
Yeah. That is a lot of the things that I wanted to chat about. The other thing we haven't really talked too much about that I see a lot going around is human milk. Human milk is what we feed our babies, but the idea of seeking it from someone else. So we know that there are like milk banks, but then I also see, I'm overproducing. I have milk in my freezer to share, or I even see, if you're in a pinch, like I will wet nurse your baby. Like I can't pump, but I will nurse your baby. So what are your thoughts on that?
So people are desperate. People are scared that they can't feed their babies. They can't find what they need. And I know that desperation can really lead us to situations that are not exactly safe. milk, human milk from a milk bank, I think is a good idea. If that's helpful to you.
Now, for like a baby that's used to taking formula, do you see any potential issues with making like a rapid switch to back to human milk and then back to formula, but kind of hopping around?
Right. So if you have a little bit of formula and you can mix it, so there's that flavor difference, right? Every human's milk is going to taste a little bit different because it's created specifically for that little baby attached to that human. And if you have a kiddo who has a specialized formula, you might be getting some human milk that is not dairy or soy free or whatever allergen you're trying to avoid. To me, the milk bank is not a great option, but I understand that people are scrambling. Letting someone nurse your baby, again, I think there are people who feel comfortable with that, and that's okay.
A personal choice.
A personal choice. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. I will say that, like, it's really heartwarming to see all of these moms really coming together to support each other and offering up what they have to help each other. I think, that personal choice piece is huge. And, personally for me as a mom, like if I was in that desperate situation and it was a trusted friend, I might make a different decision than someone on Facebook that's posting that I don't have that trust to know what they're putting into their body or what medical things might be going on with that person.
That's a really good point. Somebody might be on a medication that you're not aware of, and that ends up in their breast milk that you might be giving your kiddo. That's a really good point.
Yeah. So that common sense piece maybe coming back again.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the other thing, I'm actually, before I go switch topics a tiny bit, I just want to hop on to the group to see if there are any questions that have come up that we haven't already gone over. See just a couple spots. It looks like so far everything, hopefully we have touched upon, and of course we will have contact information for both of us if anyone watching this after the fact has additional questions, or you just have follow-up questions to anything that we talked about. So the other piece, and I think I think we could go on and on about, as a culture, there's a lot of cultural implications and norms surrounding breastfeeding. And I've been seeing, personally, I haven't experienced this, which makes me happy about the people in my life, but why don't you just breastfeed? The pressure and feedback that some of these moms who are just so stressed out about feeding their babies are getting from the public. So in no way, like, fed is best, and everybody has a journey and has come to make their own choices, and like, we just want babies to be healthy and growing. But that being said, if your goals are breastfeeding and you are struggling to breastfeed, maybe you are supplementing right now, so the formula crisis is scary, and you're really trying to extend that breastfeeding as long as you can for yourself. Karen is a certified lactation consultant. She has some lactation training. I am an infant feeding specialist. So please reach out if you are struggling and wanting to maintain that breastfeeding as an option for your family, because we're here to help. There are other professionals in the state. If you're not local to us, we can help get you connected with the right people. But I think, that's a piece of this too, right? Is supporting people who are wanting to breastfeed to be able to do that, because that puts formula back on the shelves for people who really need it. So
yeah, I want to add to that. So I have seen comments, really just mean stuff well, this is what you get for not breastfeeding your
Yeah.
baby. This is what happens when you don't do the natural thing. How cruel and awful is that to say to any parent? That's just ignorant and unhelpful.
Yeah.
And so we've tried to be helpful here today. I suspect that some of the stuff we talked about, people maybe were already dialed into, but we're hoping that our conversation would at least be, you know, a little, we offer up a little nugget here or there about how you can get through this. I will say there are a couple of glimmers of hope. One is that yesterday or the day before, President Biden invoked the Defense Act. Oh, rats, I wrote it down.
Don't look at me.
Defense Production Act, where he literally accelerated the amount of FDA agents who can go out and inspect plants and inspect products so that it can get out faster. And he also did something with Operation Fly Formula or something, so that the military is available to fly to other countries to get ingredients that are needed to make formula here, right? So there's a production piece, like there's another, like I think Abbott said it, yes, that particular plant that they shut down, they've been given the green light to open up and produce again, but it's going to be 6 to 8 weeks before that product makes it to the market. So there are a few things that are happening, and we are so grateful for everybody who is pitching in, right? Please do yourself a favor and don't listen to the garbage out there. Don't listen to that noise. You're doing a great job. We know you're working as hard as you can. Ali said it best, fed is best, right? We're here to help you feed your baby. That first year is really critical and crucial and challenging in a lot of ways. And so our hearts are with you for sure. So like she said, don't hesitate to reach out if there's anything else we can do to be helpful.
I will provide links to both of our practices, Nutrition Karen, for any nutrition counseling, especially if you are thinking about some of those alternatives that we discussed and wondering if that is indeed a good fit for your child, because again, we always recommend before making a choice like that to consult with your pediatrician or a healthcare professional. Also, the lactation piece, if you're struggling with breastfeeding, she has a lot of good knowledge to support you with that. Infant feeding over here. And then we also have some resources that Karen has put together that we will share as well, in terms of different community resources and national resources for trying to get information and locate formulas and things like that. Anything else?
No, I mean, you know me, I could talk forever. So probably want to wrap it up now.
Yes. So thank you so much for joining us. We hope this has been helpful. And please reach out if there's anything that we can do to support you and your family. All right. Thank you so much, Karen, for being here.
You're welcome. It was my pleasure.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.